Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture. I have voice actor Michael Zekas with me, so thank you for being on. It's been a while.
Hey, Andrew, it's good to see you again. It's been, I think, 5 years now. Good Lord. Oi. It's good to see
Yeah,
you again.
it's been 5 years, so I think I'm going to fill everybody in a little bit on the back history here really quickly. And it's not bad because I already know everybody's assuming that right off the bat, but I interviewed Michael 5 years ago, sort of at the start of my podcast, reached out. I think we met before LICon reached out, then you were at LICon,
Mhm.
and then lo and behold, we did an interview, and then the podcast has just been going onward. And so we're just having a very informal conversation about anime and other things that's going on, especially in particular when these times are trying with the coronavirus and how we as humanity should be bonding together because we're all in this together. Whether we like a country or we don't, we're all still human to some degree. So that's where we're at. And so I did finally watch Holy Night, and I think that's the best place to start. And we're going to keep it as PG as possible. But Holy Night was a very
Yes.
early show, and there's some good stuff in Holy Night. If you're under the age of 16, might not be for you, but I think that's a great place to start.
Oh, going way back to Holy Night. So that was the first ever anime that I had worked on now 5 years ago with Media Blasters back in New York. And I don't even know where to start with it. It was a two-part OVA based on a manga series. As Andrew mentioned, uh, anime is a funny medium where there's a very interesting line of what is family friendly versus a bit risque versus what is just mature content that might have some relevance to the story and in many cases might be a little bit gratuitous. So, Holy Night in particular, it's the story about a half vampire who is trying to engage with the person who killed her family the person whose ancestor killed her family years ago. And when I say engage, I mean engage. Along with a vampire hunter slash acronym user, Mr. Cliff, my character, who's also a school teacher of the school that she's conveniently going to. And it's just, it can only be summed up in one word: anime. But working on that series and learning about how to do ADR voiceover, which is its own unique thing. All anime is done as ADR, advanced dialogue replacement, in which they will use all the footage that currently exists from the Japanese source and then replace the English language to try and make it work as best as they can with flaps and with timing. They'll revise the script, sometimes localize a few things so that, like Brock's jelly-filled donuts from Pokemon, so that can be accessible to an audience who might not get it right away, in some cases. But had worked on that years ago, had worked on a few of the projects with Media Blasters back when I lived on the East Coast, had some parts in Juden-chan, Rio Rainbow Gate, Ladies versus Butlers, in which I had been cast as two businessmen in a dating sim. Let's put it like that. And ever since then, I have been working on a bunch of video games. I'm now outside of Dallas, Texas. I've worked on titles such as Smite, such as Nobunaga's Ambition Taishi by Koei Tecmo. I've done some work with Funimation, Haku Hoshinengi, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Die Neue These, which just, I believe, finished up its second season recently. And then also a few smaller roles in other titles, such as My Hero Academia, had worked on the recent Fairy Tail movie. I
Black
always get them
Clover was
mixed up because
another
there was
one.
After Lost and Human Lost. Had worked on the feature film Human Lost, had a small part in that, and just been keeping busy with a lot of video games and some animation in there.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about that because for those who don't know, New York is a hub for voiceover work. Texas is a hub, as well as LA for anime and cartoons for the most part.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's voiceover work all over. You know, the NBA has a big voiceover studio. So does WWE and others. And so it's not just exclusive to anime, but those are the three that really are big for anime and cartoons, and in particular the coasts more so. And so, what was that like moving from New York to Texas? Because I think Texas is more anime centric due to Funimation, and Rooster Teeth is in Texas, as well as the third company, Sentai Films or Sentai Works, is also in Texas around there, and I think there's a few other smaller ones too. So, what was that move like for you?
So the move actually, when I had originally gotten into voiceover, one thing that I wanted to make a point of doing was being able to work from home and be as well equipped as I could to have a home studio. Dividends that have paid off over the years since I've had recording equipment, and even from my home studio, I can handle ADR with my setup were the opportunity to ever come up, and remote directing, things like that. So the move was originally I'd moved to Austin, which while Rooster Teeth does a lot of their production there, it's a bit of a quieter hub. There are video games that do get produced. A lot of them still work with California talent because oftentimes the game companies' motherships will be in California. But you are right that it is a lot more anime-centric. Funimation is a massive powerhouse, and then with Sentai Filmworks down in Houston, the two of them tend to be some of the biggest pulls for the market down here. And video games are next in line. There's some large titles that do get produced here. So Okatron 5000, Chris Sabat's studio, kind of a sister studio to Funimation of sorts. They produce a lot for high-res studios such as Smike, which I had worked on, and they also do the series Paladins. And then Gearbox Software does a lot of production as well. So Borderlands 3, I believe, had a primarily, if not almost exclusively, Texas-based cast. And the director that I worked with on Nobunaga's Ambition, Taishi, he was hiring talent from around the country, but was based in Austin, Texas. So having a basis where I'm able to work remote and work around the country, it's nice because I can still have access to a lot of the projects. And sometimes some productions will only hire local talent. A lot of LA studios in particular, and even a few back in New York, they only want to be able to hire someone who is in state or in the nearby area so they can come in to record. But I know with things changing with the current health pandemic, there has been a push for more remote talent and trying to reach out so that some production can continue. But it was kind of a thing of just building up in a new market, getting to know other voice actors, and reaching out just to get involved with other projects. Because even if there might not be something directly in the area, like in Austin, anime production is all remote. Any anime production that was done in Austin had since closed up shop with a studio called Monster Island that was part of ADV, which eventually became Sentai Filmworks. But there is always other work to be able to that one can obtain wherever they happen to be in voiceover.
And to talk even more about Texas, obviously a lot of people you know now are down in Texas. Damon Mills is great. Brittany Lauda, who you know, who sort of gave you your first opportunity, is now heavily down in Texas. And yes, I can name like 10 other people, but I think we get the point here because I think they're not going to mind me mentioning them on this Facebook Live, or hopefully they don't. If they do, I'm sure they'll tweet at me and yell at me. But what is that like, having friends down in Texas who you've known for years versus just being like new, and even before they came down to Texas or when you first arrived?
Well, there's definitely a degree of familiarity. So Brittany Lauda was one of the directors on Holy Night years ago, and she has since built up her own studio, Kocha Sound, and is also one of the directors who works at Funimation quite regularly. So it's nice to have familiarity with the individuals that we worked together building our own career for a few years, and also to meet new talent, because there's a lot of wonderful people that have come out from different paths. And in voiceover, sometimes it might take a moment to find individuals, because in many cases we're either working from home or we have studios in particular that we spend all of our time at, and trying to figure out at meetups when people will come out. But it's a nice little bit of familiarity while building a new community. The Texas market in particular has been coming together a lot. There have been some organizers who have really tried to bring together the community, whether in Dallas or around the entire state of Texas, to create just that sense of community that we can all work together, have more workshops, talk business, and so it's that kind of nice thing that it's just, new location.
And you mentioned something really interesting, and this is something that I don't know if people know, but voiceover is very similar to comic book writing, where it is very much a solo activity. It's very much a loner activity, whether that's even in studio, because typically you're either with a director, might be with a sound engineer, or if you're doing it from your house, well, that's just it. Unless somebody's in your house, you're doing it alone. So, what is that like, especially in today's health crisis that we're facing, which is almost forcing everybody to now be remote? What is that entire experience been like? Really, the push to remoteness, even more so now.
So I've been okay with it because when I set up my when I set up my ability to record from home early on and bit by bit built up my home studio, it's something that I go, okay, I'm all ready. Just if you want to remote direct, I have the ability to have a client on the line so that I can talk with them back and forth. We can have some laughs, maybe even come up with a few extra lines that might be there. And where I'll be working with clients, I know, funny enough, one client that I work with is in China, who fortunately has not been affected by what they've been dealing with the health crisis over there, but sent over work and just getting it sent back, communicating through emails. Sometimes it can be a little hard to work from home, as one challenge will be you're self-directing. So you're recording, you're engineering, you're trying to listen back and go, does this sound believable? And work on trying to make sure that everything will connect naturally so that you're not in your head as you're talking. And many people have different tricks for overcoming that, but it's, to me, it's almost, I like the ability to work from home where you get ready, you head in the booth, you got to scream your head off like you're being possessed by a demon, as happens about once every other gig or so. And it just continuing on. It is still nice to get out, though, because I go, man, just I want to see a friend and get some coffee, but every coffee place is closed down right now. Okay.
And so we're going to get to screaming your head off because video games tend to do that more than animate in a lot of ways. And
Yes.
I hear horror stories how people love video game work because it's different and it's more, from my understanding, a lot of video games you do the voice and then they build the animation around it
Yes.
versus with anime. And so there's a lot more freedom in a video game. We're going to get to that in 1 second because I do want to talk about human lost or humanity lost because that's kind of a big deal for you, where that was a big screen position. And even though you only had a small role, what was that like? Because that's kind of a step, and that's a stepping stone for a lot of people. And it's a nice thing when that happens, when you're on the big screen, even if you have one or two lines.
Well, the thing, it was definitely an exciting opportunity to find out this was going to be released in theaters. And I know when I started my career, there's a lot of, there's one of the biggest challenges of voiceover, and anyone, no matter what step in your career you're at, you'll be dealing with mental wellness and possibly imposter syndrome. And especially when I was starting very early on, was recording from home, had a lot of family who just went, it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. What are you doing? It's a pipe dream. But to look and see that that was released and many got the opportunity to enjoy it. Now, it was a little sad because it was really hard to find the dubbed releases. In many cases, it was only shown with the subtitles in the original Japanese language. So it was a little tough because it was a limited release, but hearing about that opportunity, just knowing that it got made, Funny enough, my role was essentially working in a call center, so I went, okay, I have real life experience. Essentially, I just need to sound pleasant and just sound professional. Okay, cool. And just hold back the visceral hatred of, great, I'm waiting for the next call. That tends to happen in many call center positions, but it was it was really a lot of fun and kind of another moment that ends up in the longer track of, all right, I've been able to build something, and just enjoying each gig as it comes and becomes a new part of business. And you go, all right, more gigs, more regularity, more opportunity, and it's wonderful when someone gets to see it.
I'm going to table that because I do want to talk about the video game stuff. Because screaming your head off can destroy your throat. As I stated, there are horror stories, and I've interviewed, I think now 40 voice actors, and a lot of them do video game work. And as I stated, it's definitely, for most of them, the voice almost is first, and then the animation is built second. But a video game, just to give everybody an understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you might have to do 3 or 4 punches, because you might have to do a punch that is at full power and then lesser power when you're damaged, especially if you have characters that have power-ups, like you have a 20% boost in some video games when your health is lower. So
yep.
What is that like, really getting to do all those maneuvers, and then also you can do a video game in many ways out of order versus anime that sometimes has to be done in order?
Yes. So you're right on all that. And it's interesting how video games will typically be done. You'll have some very narrative heavy games. There's one I work on with a developer out of Austin called Red Star Azimuth, where it's very narrative heavy. And so it's being directed like it's an animation or a screenplay going line by line. But then, so Smite or Nobunaga's Ambition Taishi were just like you described, where the client might be listening in, but it essentially comes down to give them 3 takes, move on to the next line. Give them 3 takes, move on to the next line. You'll have 300 lines that'll be there. And if something goes a little bit off, the client will go, okay, I think either you're losing the voice or I didn't quite like that. Can we get one more? So there's a lot of self-directing with that. And it's mostly just getting everything that they need, because they already know from the audition, they like what you were able to put into this character. And so you're just building upon that for the lines where it's double kill, triple kill, quadra kill, so on and so forth. And you'll, for a lot of battle reacts, those are the stuff that will cause damage if you're not careful. And there's been some back and forth. A lot of clients in particular who have really tried to make sure that voice actors' ability to perform can be preserved because of the risk of that. Because if you need to do 3 death yells, then you're doing funky vocal placements. You're doing something that, if it's done too hard and you're not careful about it, you're going to wreck your voice for the rest of the day and need some time to recover. And long term, there's a story, actually, the first voice actress who played Excel in Excel Saga, she had to be removed from the project because her doctor said, if you keep doing this, you will lose your entire voice and it will be irreparable damage. So it's nice that a lot of clients try to help preserve that. And it also does in many cases pay. It's not, video games often tend to pay a good amount for the work, 1, because of how big the business tends to be, and 2, a little bit of hazard that is involved, and it depends client to client, market to market. But I love doing video games, and if I could do nothing else in my life but video games, I'd just be happy as anything. As the source material you get, the creative content, even if you're doing a PvP kind of battle game, it's fun, it's exertive. You get to go through different emotions. You get to be silly. And then even you'll get the video games where they're not prelay like that. I have one client where they have sent me, I've had to dub video game cutscenes that were originally another language So I had to set up my own time coding for my lines to punch them in and make sure that they fit, fortunately without any kind of mouth movements or flaps, but where I had to time everything to the video to make sure that it would work for their production. And it's hard work, but very rewarding when you look and see so and so supervillain that has this deep guttural kind of voice that suddenly is now battling with the hero character opposite you in that cutscene.
And so to talk about video games, because I play a bunch of video games. I'm a big Overwatch player. Love Resident Evil games. Resident Evil just came out. And
Yep.
obviously, I think the business is expanding, especially during these times. And I find that, to some degree, that I love anime too, but I think video games is even bigger than anime in a lot of ways. And it also has further reach, and there's billions upon billions of dollars. I mean, just look at Activision, which is one of the largest companies out there. I don't know what their market capitalization is, but how does that make you feel when you're in like a really big game or even an indie game that's getting a lot of attention, and you say, "Oh, I did that," and then people are playing as your character because there is more of an interactive experience versus an anime. So, as voicing that character, what is that like seeing that?
It's really touching, mostly because I spent many years growing up playing video games, and I'll be straightforward. I grew up in a small town, and I was one of very, very few people who enjoyed video games. And when we got into the PS1 and Dreamcast generations where voiceover in video games started becoming viable, and it started becoming something that some of my favorite early video games, like Brave Fencer Musashi, which was fully voice acted in about 1998, I think it was released around the same time as Final Fantasy VIII, so pardon my mind being a little fuzzy. But when that was released, it was so inspirational to hear these performances. And so to work on something where individuals have played it, they've enjoyed it, and that it can hopefully inspire them, whether it's becoming voice actors themselves or in many cases becoming artists and using fan art as an early medium to develop up. It's really touching for something to go full circle. There's been some projects I've worked on that developed such a strong fan community, and it's really touching because while voice acting is part business, part passion, to see the enjoyment and inspiration that exists in works that you've had an opportunity to contribute to, it's touching, giving a sense of, all right, they're inspired by something like I was. And it brings just the warmest smile when people will then reach out and say, I loved this. Thank you. And I'm eternally grateful that they enjoy it.
And even more so with video games and even with anime, if you look at the last 5 years, and we can even expand it to the last 10 years, in 2010 with video games, they were one type of graphic style, and the graphics in today's standards were sort of subpar. And even in anime, you can make the argument that same thing. And I love old school anime. I watch anime from the 70s. I play video games from like 30 years ago. But what is that like to even have the graphics just continuously increase and getting to work on projects where the graphics are being blown out of proportion and are amazing? And I mean, just looked at the trailer for Resident Evil 3 to use it as an example. That looks amazing, and then the voice work is up there as well, and it's almost like voice work. And for somebody who's been watching anime for almost 20 years now, the voice work, in my opinion, has actually risen up to that level. So what is that like to be, I guess, in probably the best generation of voice actors, in my opinion, at the very least?
It's exciting and fascinating, and game development is another thing that I have a soft spot for because I love seeing what's going on with either the games that are going for that extremely polished, use every bit of technology look. A friend had recently announced that he was in the Final Fantasy VII remake, and it's just I'm happy for you, because that is an amazing, amazing achievement. And to see something that has gone from being blocky giant forearms to being this super polished signature Square Enix style where everything is over the top, every character is gorgeous, everything is great, and you look at it and just go, that is amazing. And then also the individuals who might take something that's an old style. There's another game I'm working on. It's a point and click. Actually, first time I've mentioned it it's a point and click called Soul 705, being developed out of Switzerland, and it's going for that old style of Sierra graphics, where it's a classic PC pixel art. And so the facility by which that can be achieved, but yet individuals can still go for insane levels of detail. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into that, whether they're doing 3D modeling or whether they're doing one developer, the one who's developing Red Star Azimuth, Manuela Malasanya of Team Dogpit, a game that started and was going to be kind of a Danganronpa style game, suddenly then got 3D models and then got mouth flap sync to all of the voiceover and new technologies that end up getting implemented. And it's so inspirational to see what game developers can bring into their concepts. And it's just, the technology gets greater and the ideas get crazier. So the sky's the limit. And I just love seeing every game that comes out. My Steam library hates me because it goes, bruh, you got 100 and how many games that are sitting in your queue right now? And then my Switch over the side goes, yeah, and I got about 15. You only don't buy mine because they're so expensive. But it's such a wonderful time to create and then still consume more content that might even be an inspiration for something else that gets created.
And I think that sort of leads us into the final points that I want to talk about, because obviously we're all homebound and we're going to be for a while, and anime and Comic-Cons are getting canceled / postponed, and there's going to be a whole issue with that where I don't think anybody's going to even want to go to half of these. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how you are affected by that, and how even just Texas is, because it's obviously an anime hub, it's a video game hub. And so how are you dealing with that issue and that sort of come down the pike? Or just how is the entire anime community from your angle of looking from inside out?
It's definitely interesting. I know in the last few weeks, A-Kon, the biggest con in Texas and one of the biggest in the country, recently canceled its 2020 plans entirely. And I believe, there was an Anime Fest, I suspect, is probably going to fall into a similar fate. It's difficult right now with so many cons stopping. And the problem is that I understand a lot of them stopping. Before I got into voiceover, and even after, there were many cons I went to where, if you've ever heard of what's called the con crud, where someone brought a particularly nasty virus that got passed around because of how crowded how crowded anime conventions tend to get. So it's sad because there's so much fun and inspiration that comes to it. I was dragged to my first open audition at Anime USA 2010. And that's what was the kindling that sparked the bonfire that led me to want to get in this new career. So it is sad. I know some other individuals have been reaching out to have some virtual conventions. In my case, the thing that I miss the most is getting the opportunity to speak about different topics, whether it's, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the business side of voiceover and how to get something that'll be sustained, because especially in the anime market, it is very tightly knit. It is very hard to get regular work. There are many actors where you might work one session a week, one session a month. Some seasons you might not hear for a few months. And that's just how it is based on what the business is, what they might think of your voice type. If there are certain directors who might have certain needs for shows, one director might just have a show that has no guys or very few girls, whatever the case might be. And so I know some other actors have been reaching out about doing, they've been doing some distance cons of sorts where they're having live streams. I know some people work on Anime Unlocked where they're doing that. I had actually started streaming recently so to be able to, that individuals could just join while playing some video games so we can have some fun, so we can have some laughs, kind of have a little bit of support for each other. Many of them, their schools have been stopped for a week, a week and what is now going to be a 2-month shutdown for some of the schools here in Texas. And just reaching out so that we can share some time together. And I've been planning to do, whenever I've done conventions in recent years, I've been usually trying to have the business, at least a business panel, something to talk about audio engineering, and something to talk about mental wellness because of the struggles that many creatives will fall into, myself included, with trying to run a creative career and still have that spark to drive you. So I've been trying to keep plans going so that I can still talk about these things and that we can have a chance to come together. Some of it's still tentative planning because, of course, with everything shutting down in the last few weeks, it all comes down to, all right, figure out a day and let's work it out. But trying to still create that sense of community, and it's almost kind of nice because it is more intimate and the ability to just speak more personally, a little bit less of the crazy hustle and bustle and no risk that I might get a panel at about 9 o'clock in the morning where I might be running after trying to get my hair done because I am not a morning person. So keeping calm, continuing on, and just trying to provide that sense of community that we can all still enjoy each other's company and spend time together and keep inspiring each other back and forth to create, because cabin fever's real. You go nuts from it if you don't have a good way of what's your next step. What are you going to do today?
So I'll tell my position on it because I just had a panel at AwesomeCon canceled and they're postponed and they're doing it in December and they're giving me my panel. And it's, whether I can say it or not, I'm going to say it anyway. It's on Pokemon and government. So it's a really cool concept. And, you know, panelists don't get paid, but I like speaking about that topic. And so for me, it's very upsetting in that regard. And I would imagine that I'm more in the comic field than I am in the voice acting field. But regardless, it clearly is a very pressing time. And, you know, cons are lucrative for everybody who attends who's a guest, quote unquote. And so that's also a big issue right now. Just throwing it out there. And so it's very interesting for me as somebody looking, I guess, on the outside in on what's happening, what cons are doing, and how they're addressing this. Because I'll be honest, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head where I've never heard about con crud. Never heard about that. That I've never heard about. But what I have heard about is, you know, definitely I don't want somebody on top of me. You know, you go to New York Comic Con, a lot of tight, really tight hallways, tight walking through, really, really rough, hard to move around. And I could just imagine with this virus that, and look, you know, it is, I mean, I honestly think that we're going to see declines in June, I think, but I'm not ready to go out in July so quickly. I'm not going to be even ready to go out in August so quickly either. Yeah. Because all it takes is that one person who has it, and the way this thing is infectious. And so I think what's going to start to happen is that I think more virtual cons are going to start appearing. And I think there's going to be more things like this, just with a Zoom, where you might have 200 people in a Zoom conference. And no, I don't have an affiliate link for Zoom. I'm not being paid for stating that.
But you do have one for Dollar Shave Club.
I wish. I need one. I mean, my razor just broke. It's just terrible. I'm the worst at it. I'm really lazy. It's like I'm a lumberjack, everybody. It's clear. See, I'm not as neat as you are.
Well, believe me, When I'm camera ready, I'll put a little extra effort into it. But that is it's one good incentive about being on camera or in person is, all right, make sure you look pretty. Because no one wants to see when I'm going, well, it's nice to have a routine just to feel good, look good. I think it was RuPaul who had the song "Looking Good, Feeling Gorgeous," and just I empathize so much. I'm surprised that you managed to get through so many cons without getting sick, because it seemed, especially before I got into voiceover, when I was going as a fan, there were some cons where it was just Katsucon in particular. If I went to Katsucon, expect to get sick, and I'd be out for 2 weeks because someone brought this nasty, nasty flu that just wiped out half the people who went to the con.
Never been sick at a con. Not going to. I've done maybe. I've done 50 panels up to this point. I've probably been to about 40 conventions, all over, and I just don't get sick at conventions. It's crazy to me, in which that it's something that just doesn't happen. I also, I don't pile 15 people in a hotel room either. And so I stay clean before I go to a con. I shower. I eat properly every day. And look, I'll be honest with everybody. Spending that extra $600, it makes a difference, because I don't want to be sick. And to be honest, I don't want 15 people in my hotel room. I like to go to bed at like 11 o'clock. I'm not going to bed at 4 in the morning.
As we say in my country, you have an immune system that is strong like ox.
Well, maybe, or maybe, you know what it is? Maybe I'm just not participating in anything engaging. Because if you go, we see it, we know it, it exists.
Yes. Picking each other's noses so that we could spread viruses back to each other. That is the quintessential con experience. This is true. It's on Wikipedia. I read it.
So anyway, we've been speaking for about 37 minutes. We're live. A bunch of people have been watching it. Not enough, but I'll be pushing this out. So everybody, please like it, reshare it, check it out continuously. But I am curious on what your social media is and what you have to promote, because obviously, if you got extra money and you want to support people who do cool stuff, who need it, because, well, the entire con world has shrunken. So promote yourself and sell yourself.
All right. Well, I core blimey, and of course that's the moment where I lose my trail of thought. Anyway, but I appreciate the opportunity. All of my work and my resume is available at my website, michaelazekas.com. And I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Michael A. Zekas, last name Zekas. And I have recently started up my Twitch channel right now, so I am at twitch.tv/MihaiZetta, MIHAIZETTA. Come on in. Let's have some fun. Let's have some laughs. It's wonderful just to hear your experiences. Check out your own work, too. I mean, the most wonderful thing about social media is that I get to see your work, too, in many cases. So bring your art. Bring your creative stuff. Got a project you want to work on together? Let me know. Let's make some magic happen. But thank you for the opportunity to mention that.
And we're going to end right there, everybody. But seriously, go follow him on social media. And follow me, too, if you haven't already. My social media is at Pop Anime Comics. Anything with Pop Anime Comics is mine unless I owe you money. And in that case, I'm going to quietly walk away. We all know the routine. We've all been in a store where somebody broke something and everybody pretends like it didn't happen. And we all quietly walk away. Well, that's how I'm going to leave if I owe you money. But if I don't owe you money, please come bother me on social media. Go follow Michael and go follow a bunch of people, because you're stuck inside anyway. You might as well become smarter.
Let's all create together and follow this man. Follow his stuff. Yeah? Good. Thank you.